Hey everyone, now that patch 2.3 is finally out, the first wave of Euphoria upgrade has also arrived. But here's the thing, there are 7 different Euphoria available right now, or 8 if you count the double Euphoria of Lilya, and you'll only have enough materials to upgrade maybe 2 or 3 for this patch, depending on how far you progress in Reveries in the Rain. So which one are actually worth it? First thing first, Euphoria is an insanely expensive upgrade. A lot of them are designed to work with specific character or team comps, so if you are building around a particular unit such as SteamedBunX, that should be your first priority. That said, there are also some universal Euphoria that are just too good to pass up, especially if you're aiming to clear Reverie in the Rain. The first 2 characters you should absolutely upgrade, no matter what your roster look like, are Sotheby and Miss NewBabel. After Euphoria, both of them become insane sustain units, making them essential for tougher content, even when used outside of their actual niche. Let's start with Sotheby. Her Euphoria completely reworked how Cure functions. Before, Cure couldn't stack, but now with her new Insight 3, it's an entirely different buff. Not only does it heal way more than before and stack, it also has a built-in emergency trigger. If a character's HP drops below 40% from an attack, Cure will automatically active once, potentially saving them from getting knocked out. And that's not all. How she applies Cure also changed. The Cure from her skill 2 now lasts for an additional turn, but more importantly, she gains a new buff called Duality Potion each turn. The poison effect on it doesn't really matter. What does matter though is that this buff lets her first skill 1 use each turn apply Cure to the entire team, effectively doubling her healing output. After Euphoria, Sotheby is hands down the best sustained healer in the game, only falling behind Fatutu, who's coming next patch. And if you're planning to tackle Reverie in the Rain, you will want to have both of them. Now it's time to talk about Babel without the slanders. So what exactly is Miss NewBabel's Euphoria that took her from tier Babel to tier S? Well, after Euphoria, she became the perfect shield bot. Her shield got a massive buff, and they actually block a solid amount of damage now. Plus, her shields now stack with other shields instead of overriding them, so they work alongside existing shield with effect like J. But the real game changer is she now automatically casts her shield once per turn after the first enemy attack. That alone is a huge quality of life upgrade, but it gets even better. She also casts a shield every time the team does 3 counters. Now you might be thinking, wait, doesn't that mean only J can reliably trigger this? Yes and no. J benefits from this passive the most, but don't forget, Babel's ultimate is also a counter, and not just any counter. It grants her taunt and make her immune to control for 2 turns, which is huge in Reverie in the Rains, where enemies love spamming those control effects. Oh, and she also gave ally a small crit boost based on their shield strength plus a little bonus counter damage, which is nice I guess. Not as game changing as the rest of her kit, but hey, it's a bonus. Next up, the third Euphoria that's actually worth considering, I think, is Lilya. Now, I'm not gonna call this instantly broken or anything because it's not. Lilya's Euphoria doesn't make her overpowered, it just brings her back into a playable state. What makes her unique is that she's the only character with 2 different Euphoria paths, but you can only have one activate at a time, and if you're wondering which one to pick, I highly recommend going with the ultimate focus path. Both Euphoria share the same base effect, which already gives her some much needed improvement. She now converts excessive crit rate into crit damage, and her skill 2 gets a follow-up attack, which helps with her overall damage output. Now her incantation focused Euphoria, the one with ammo mechanic, has pretty underwhelming numbers. It applies up to 10% defense reduction to enemy and gives her about 25% incantation might, but the uptime is pretty limited, so it doesn't feel that impactful. Meanwhile, the ultimate focus Euphoria is just way better. It grants her 2 free moxies per rotation, which allow her to use ultimate every other turn, and significantly increase her ultimate multiplier based on how many stack of ceremonies she has, which she gains whenever her follow-up attack crits. Overall, I'd say her ultimate path is definitely worth picking up, especially if you are lacking a strong star DPS. In fact, even if you don't need her right now, I'd still suggest getting it if you have spare resources. Wind Sound might be strong on paper, but let's be real, her playstyle is borderline unplayable in a lot of Reverie stages, so having Lilya as alternative is actually useful until Liangye drops in 2 more patches. Now, those three are what I consider the best genre Euphorias, but next we are moving into the specialty Euphoria, the one that ain't as universal but provides a huge boost to specific playstyle. First up, we have Eternity. If you are interested in playing SteamedBunX carry, this Euphoria is a must-have. SteamedBunX team are only going to get stronger in the next two patches thanks to Fatutu and Pickle's Euphoria. But even right now, just unlocking Eternity's Euphoria completely changes her role. Instead of being support/sub DPS hybrid, she become a full-on DPS. So what makes Eternity so valuable for SteamedBunX? First, she now synergizes with low HP playstyle. She provides crit rate and crit damage to all allies and reduces their damage taken based on their missing health. This is a nice boost, but honestly, once Fatutu joins the team, you will probably be giving up this part of her kit. Fatutu's healing is just too strong, so this low HP synergy won't matter as much in the long run. What really makes this Euphoria worth it is the team-wide damage effect. Now, every time Eternity attack, she also deals damage to the entire team. And while that might sound like a downside, for SteamedBunX it's actually insanely good. This constant chip damage helps SteamedBunX quickly build up stacks of her follow-up attacks, which is crucial for her damage output. But it gets even better. Since this damage counts as an attack, it can also trigger other effects like Kandia's damage sharing or Fatutu's team-wide damage sharing. And because those effects also generate stacks for SteamedBunX separately, it becomes ridiculously easy to fully charge her ultimate follow-ups multiplier every single turn. So if you're planning on running a SteamedBunX team, Eternity's Euphoria is a absolutely must pick up. Now, the other very specific character with a niche but important Euphoria is Druvis III. Her entire Euphoria is focused on buffing her plant-only specialty buff, Circle of Life. Just like before her Euphoria, Circle of Life is exclusive to Plant Afflictu's allies, but now it does a lot more. On top of the usual survivability buff, it also grants actual damage bonus, penetration, and attack. But the biggest change here is she now makes reality plant character stop breaking petrified with their attack. Now, I won't say this Euphoria is super useful right now, but in 2 patches time, it's going to be a huge deal. That's when an Unleashed Euphoria drops. And with her Euphoria, she's now going to become the core to Negative Status team, which happens to partially revolve around rigid and petrified mechanics. Honestly, even I was surprised for the next one. Bkornblumn's Euphoria is actually really solid. Like Lilya, it doesn't make her overpowered, but it finally brings her back to a playable state as well, and every upgrade it gives her feels meaningful. Her Euphoria adds a small damage boost against debuff enemies, stacking with her existing bonus. More importantly, if an enemy doesn't attack her during a turn, she automatically applies weakness to them, and if she isn't attacked at all, she also gains a free Moxie, making her a lot more self-sufficient. Her ultimate also gets a major improvement, with a 30% penetration rate boost and an indirect 20% critical damage increase from its critical defense reduction effect. These effects make her far more effective in Revelry in the Reigns, where enemies have tons of defense. For anyone planning to build a negative status team in the future, Bkornblumn is now a legitimate alternative for those who are not planning to pull for Noire. On the other hand, Shamane's Euphoria completely missed the mark for me. He used to be valuable because he was the only unit who could shred mental defense while also provide some damage bonus. But unless you are running a P5 Shamane, his ultimate just isn't that impressive compared to what we have today. Instead of fixing his weaknesses, his Euphoria doubles down on his ultimate. He now gains a buff called Rippling Energy whenever an ally uses their ultimate, stacking up to 50% additional ultimate might at 10 stacked. When Shamane casts his ultimate, he consumes Rippling Energy, and for every 2 stack used, he randomly grants 1 Moxie and 15 Incantation Might to an ally's next ultimate. The RNG on this effect effectively killed his entire Euphoria. The buff can go to units that don't need Moxie at all or don't even deal damage with their ultimate, and if the chosen ally is at max Moxie, the bonus Moxie is also wasted. There is some potential if the beast team that revolve around ultimate and strong Moxie generation become viable in the future, but right now Shamane's Euphoria is the weakest in the first batch, which is unfortunate. And that wraps up the first batch of Euphoria in patch 2.3. Some of them are must-haves, some of them are solid but situational, and others, well, probably not worth the resources. Now I want to hear from you. Which Euphoria are you planning to upgrade first? Are you focusing on meta pick like Sotheby, or are you going for your faves like Shamane despite the weaker kit? Let me know in the comment down below. And as always, this has been SteamedBunX. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.